I always believed that marriage was built on trust, honesty, and love. For 10 years, I thought I had that with my wife, Rachel. We had built a life together, a beautiful home, 2 wonderful kids, and dreams of a future filled with happiness. But all that changed the day I stumbled upon a hidden family secret, one that would shatter my world and expose a pattern of infidelity woven into the very fabric of Rachel's lineage. It started innocently enough. One evening, while helping Rachel organize the attic, I discovered an old box filled with family photos and letters. Curiosity piqued, I began to sift through them. I found photographs of Rachel's mother, grandmother, and even great-grandmother, each one revealing a striking resemblance to Rachel. But as I flipped through the contents, I stumbled upon something more alarming: letters from past lovers, confessions of affairs, and heartbreak woven through generations of Rachel's family. My heart raced as I pieced together the sordid history of betrayal that had plagued her family for decades. Rachel's mother had left her father for a man she met at work. Her grandmother had been involved in a scandalous affair that ended her marriage. The letters detailed a legacy of deceit that Rachel had inherited, and it suddenly became clear to me why she had been acting distant lately. I had always sensed something was off, but this revelation was the final puzzle piece. I confronted Rachel about her behavior, but she denied everything, assuring me that I was imagining things. The anger and hurt I felt were consuming, but I knew I had to approach this carefully. Instead of confronting her directly, I decided to use this information to turn her own family against her, forcing her to confront the cycle of deceit that had now ensnared her. I organized a family meeting, inviting Rachel's closest relatives, her parents, siblings, and aunts, under the guise of wanting to strengthen family ties. I spent days preparing, gathering evidence, and crafting my narrative. I wanted them to understand that this was not just about Rachel's infidelity, it was about breaking a generational curse that had gone unchecked for too long. The day of the meeting arrived, and I could feel the tension building. Rachel was oblivious to my true intentions, believing this was a chance to reconnect with her family. I welcomed everyone into our living room, putting on my best smile, though my heart raced with anticipation. As the evening unfolded, I began to steer the conversation toward family history. I asked Rachel's mother about her own experiences with marriage, subtly probing for information about her past. The room filled with anecdotes about relationships, but I could see Rachel growing more uncomfortable as I wove my web of deceit. "Isn't it interesting how patterns seem to repeat themselves in families?" I mused, watching Rachel's expression shift from confusion to suspicion. "My own family has its share of secrets, but it seems yours has quite a legacy of its own." At that moment, I pulled out the letters I had discovered in the attic, placing them on the coffee table for everyone to see. The room fell silent as the realization of what I was doing began to sink in. "Rachel, why don't you explain these?" I asked, looking straight into her eyes, daring her to deny it. "Your grandmother's affair, your mother's betrayal. It seems like infidelity is a pattern that runs through your family." Gasps filled the room, and I watched as Rachel's face turned a shade of crimson. Her family looked at her with a mix of shock and disbelief, the weight of generations of deceit crashing down around her. "What are you talking about?" Rachel stammered, trying to regain control of the narrative. "That was a long time ago, it has nothing to do with me." "But it does," I pressed, leaning forward. "You see, Rachel, it does. You've become a part of this cycle. You've chosen to continue the legacy of lies." Her father, a stern man with a strong sense of right and wrong, frowned deeply. "Rachel, is this true? Are you involved in something like this?" The tension in the room thickened as Rachel tried to defend herself. "No, Dad. This is all a misunderstanding. I love my family." But the weight of her family's history loomed large, and they were starting to see her in a new light. I continued to lay out my case, detailing instances of her late-night phone calls, unexplained absences, and the way she had distanced herself from her own family. "This isn't just about one affair, it's about recognizing a cycle that must be broken," I said, my voice steady. "If we don't confront this now, it will continue to haunt future generations. Don't you want to be better than this?" The room erupted into murmurs, and I could see doubt creeping into Rachel's defenses. Her mother, who had once been a beacon of support for Rachel, now looked stricken with guilt. "I never wanted this for you, sweetheart. I thought you were different." Rachel's face crumbled as her mother's words pierced through her facade. "Mum, please. I'm not like you." "But you are," I interjected, the bitterness lacing my words. "You've allowed this cycle to continue without even realizing it. It's time to confront the truth." Tears streamed down Rachel's face as her family began to rally around me, questioning her about her choices and the legacy she was perpetuating. I watched as the truth unfolded, the humiliation washing over her in waves. The very fabric of her identity was unraveling, and I felt a mix of satisfaction and sorrow. As the meeting continued, Rachel's defenses crumbled completely. She faced the harsh reality of her actions, forced to reckon with the pain she had caused not only me but also her family. The cycle of deceit had been exposed, and there was no turning back. When the meeting concluded, Rachel was left alone to confront her family's disappointment and shame. I had turned her loved ones against her, forcing her to face the truth she had long avoided. The silence that followed felt heavy, a stark reminder of the betrayal that had marred our lives. In the days that followed, I noticed a shift in Rachel. She was no longer the confident woman I had married. Instead, she was a shadow of her former self, haunted by her choices and the weight of her family's history. I had succeeded in shattering the cycle, but the victory felt bittersweet. As for me, I chose to focus on healing. I sought support from friends and family who understood the gravity of the situation. I began to reclaim my life, determined to break free from the chains of Rachel's deceit. Eventually, Rachel and I reached a breaking point. She needed to confront her demons, to find a way to change the narrative that had defined her family for so long. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I also understood that she had to make the choice herself. The journey toward healing was long and arduous, but I remained hopeful. I had exposed the cycle of deceit that had plagued Rachel's family for generations, and in doing so, I had found my own strength. I had forced her to confront the truth, and while our marriage may never recover, I knew that I was on the path to rebuilding my own life. In the end, the cycle of deceit had been broken, not just for Rachel but for the generations that would come after us. It was a painful truth, but sometimes confronting the past was the only way to build a brighter future.